Okay, so welcome back, boys and girls. Let's continue our reading. So, Birth of the Inca Empire, Chapter 7. Travel south in your mind now, leaving behind the volcanic mountains and jungles of Central America. As you wind your way down into South America, you will cross the equator. You will pass through more lush rainforest in the Amazon River basin. Continue west in the direction of the Pacific Ocean. You will soon discover that there is no way to reach the ocean without crossing the Andes Mountains. This mountain range is one of the highest and longest in the world. In the 1300s, the Aztec created an empire in Mexico and the Inca built an empire in the Indies. These civilizations developed nearly 3,000 miles apart. There is no evidence to suggest that the two empires had any direct knowledge of one another. According to the legend, the sun god chose the birthplace of the Inca civilization. He chose Cuzco, located in a beautiful valley in present-day Peru, as a place where the Quechua people should settle. They lived mostly in small farming communities for about 200 years. Then, in 1438 CE, a powerful enemy threatened the Comanches' way of life. The Comanche defeated this enemy, greatly increasing their power. The size of the Comanche army grew, with Cuzco at their base. They began to conquer other indigenous groups without the Andes Mountains. An empire was born. The Kawaka called their empire Tawanchese, meaning land of four quarters. They divided this empire into four areas, or quarters, some much larger than others. Cuzco was at the center of the empire where the four quarters met. The quarter extended across the high Andes Mountains. From there, it dipped into sheltered valleys, windy plains, and dry coastal deserts. In the 1500s, the Spanish changed the empire's name to Inca. Today we use the name Inca to describe the largest pre-Columbian empire ever built. So, boys and girls, what are you starting to think about? Did you listen and understand how these names came about and how the empire was settled in the Central American jungle? So, just as you read, continue to start thinking about these things and why. Again, we're thinking about our big question: what factors contributed to the Inca Empire becoming the largest pre-Columbian empire? Okay, let's continue reading. In the days of the empire, the term Inca, meaning king or lord, referred only to members of the royal family. The Inca called their empire Sampa Inca. He ran a strong, organized government from the capital city of Cuzco. If you think of the Inca society structure as a pyramid, the Sapa Inca was at the top. He ruled supreme above all others. The Inca believed that the Sapa Inca was descended from Iti, the sun god. Her- Heredity determined who would become empire, meaning that when the empire died, his son would become the next ruler. If the Sapa Inca had more than one son, he chose the strongest of his sons to replace him. Repeated People treated the Sampa Inca like a god. He lived in a magnificent palace, dressed in gold fringed clothing and ate off gold plates. Servants carried him on a golden litter. Powerful men surrounded the Sapa Inca. Four governors helped him rule each of the empire's four quarters. Most government officials were nobles and members of the royal family. They included priests, judges, army officials, officers, and tax collectors. The bottom of the pyramid consisted of the rest of the society. Commoners worked for the empire. So, boys and girls, I want you to take a look at this pyramid here. So, it shows the government in the pyramid of power. So, at the top, the most powerful was the Sampa Inca. And then they had the governors, the governor officials, which included their judges, priests, army officials, tax collectors, and then the bottom, which was the majority, were their commoners. So that's just how they ran. Think about it, boys and girls. They had a government system just like we do. So isn't that amazing? So we're going to stop right here and we're going to pick back up on our next portion of our reading.